Luka Doncic was in complete control against the Clippers in Game 1, finishing with 31 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds, and handling everything the Clippers tried to throw at him. They played drop coverage, they switched on him, they switched to trap, they straight up trapped the ball screen. It did not matter what the Clippers attempted and tried to do. Luka Doncic had a counter for everything. In this breakdown, we're going to look at how Luka attacked the Clippers defense, possession by possession, and looking at the good and the bad and what the Clippers might try to do more of next game. My name is Coach Gibson Pyper. You can follow me on Twitter at HalfCourtHoops. Let's get into the breakdown. The very first possession, we can see Doncic get the ball. In transition, he will scan and look who's around him to see the floor. He notices that Paul George is taking Finney-Smith on the wing. That means Kleber is going to be open in the corner. He passes it over the length of Kawhi and Paul George. This allows Kleber to attack the closeout and draw fouls early in the game. Next, we have Doncic in the post. In early offense, he's going to seal Patrick Beverley in the post and use his height and strength advantage. After catching the ball in the mid-post, he's going to back down Beverley, attack, notice that Beverley sticks an arm out, and then draw a foul. Looking back on the replay, we can see the cleverness and the skills of Luka Doncic. He notices that Beverley's arm is out. He uses both his arms like James Harden, rips up through, draws contact, and gets the foul call. Here we have an example of the Clippers' philosophy when starting off the game in ball screen coverage against Luka Doncic. The first thing the Clippers are going to try here is go to just a switch after drop coverage with Zubac. You can see him pointing to Beverley to take the pick and pop. Doncic pulls back, ends up missing the first step back three. In this example, we're going to see the Clippers switch this action with Zubac and Beverley again, although they probably didn't need to because the Mavericks were setting up a different play. Here we're going to see Doncic attack Zubac this time. As he attacks in the lane, he's going to use his balance and footwork, show the ball to get Zubac off balance, end up finishing over his length. Again, we get Doncic posting up Beverley in a cross-match scenario. He's going to back him down, and as Beverley jumps here, we can see Doncic use, again, his balance and footwork to allow Beverley to clear his space and finish through contact for the and one with some choice words for Beverley and fired up after this. Another example of Doncic's court vision, as he just simply brings the ball up, he notices that Finney-Smith is open on the wing. Paul George is late to recover, ends up in a dunk for Finney-Smith, and that's really poor defense from the Clippers. Here we have the Mavericks putting a twist on their 21 chase, hunting Zubac in the ball screen. Doncic gets Zubac switch, throws the ball out, ends up missing a step-back corner three. Early in the game, the Clippers weren't getting burnt too badly in ball screens, but that's all going to change with about 5 minutes left to go in the first quarter. Doncic really started to control the game with his ball screen passing and vision. As he comes off a double ball screen here from Porzingis and Kleber, Zubac is in drop coverage. All it takes is Reggie Jackson to cheat over on the roll man for a second, and Doncic fires a cross-court pass for an open corner three. Spain pick and roll is going to be a common theme throughout this video. The back screen on the ball screener here forces Zubac to switch onto Doncic. Now, the 76ers show us how to actually guard this with Dwight Howard dropping underneath the back screen and both guards switching, jumping onto the ball and recovering to the pop. Since Zubac switches onto Doncic here, Doncic takes him into the paint, hits him with this little half spin. Notice how Zubac's balance is off, allows Doncic to hit the easy fadeaway jumper. Here we see the actual call for the Mavericks Spain ball screen. They call it stack. In this example, we're going to see Paul George actually switch out onto Doncic, but then they're just going to re-screen and find Zubac again. I think they give away this switch a little too easily, but they end up not paying for it as Doncic misses another step back three. Now in this example, we're going to see the drag ball screen and a re-screen by Cauley Stein here against Ibaka in drop ball screen coverage. Paul George does a good job staying attached. Doncic with a good pump fake and pivot move ends up missing the pull-up jumper. Another drag screen in transition here with Cauley Stein setting it. This time Paul George gets picked off just a little bit. Ibaka's in no man's land. Doncic ends up hitting the running floater. Another drag screen on the side. This time Paul George gets clipped off again. Doncic looks to draw the foul, ends up not getting the foul call. But I love this little whoop. Got Ibaka ends up making an easy layup. Doncic looks to use 21 action as a decoy here, coming off the spread ball screen. And we can see the Clippers' philosophy of really clogging up the floor as Kawhi, Paul George, and Ibaka are all sagging off. Kawhi does a great job here of recovering in the gap and contesting the shot. Here we get another stack call from Carlisle, with Paul George signaling to the Clippers that the Spain ball screen, stack ball screen's coming. We get the back screen on the ball screen here. Ibaka ends up switching, so Brunson doesn't set the back screen. We get Ibaka matched up with Doncic, shows a little side hezzy, ends up driving into length and missing the shot. Good contest by Ibaka and Batum there. Here we see Doncic controlling the game, trying to hunt Zubac and ball screen, bringing Kleber in to set a ball screen. We get a rescreen and Zubac looks like they're going to switch. Rondo gets caught in no man's land. Doncic thinks he has the roller, ends up kind of a scramble play as Doncic gets the ball back here. He attacks the closeout of Kawhi. As he attacks, he notices that Beverly's going to help, and now he starts reading the game. Looks for the baseline cut by Finney-Smith, looks over, sees Rondo playing in between the two, fires it to the corner for a corner three. Another example of Doncic controlling the game, calling out who he wants to set the ball screen, brings in Finney-Smith to set this spread pick and roll. He attacks downhill, ends up getting this switch for Zubac, ends up hesitating, pulling it back. I love here how Finney-Smith cuts, so Paul George is in gap help right now, really clogging up the lane. That spacing cut cleared a little bit of extra space, froze Zubac. Doncic hits the step back three. Next possession, he rejects it. Morris helps off of the wing. This creates a 2-on-1 advantage effect, drive, and easy layup. This is when the Clippers started to go to more a variety of coverages on Doncic. Here we see a drop to a switch. Beverly then is going to blitz, so I would just call this like a switch to trap or a switch to blitz. This forces Doncic to give it up. It does create a slight advantage for the Mavericks, but it forces the other players to play. The Clippers do a good job flying around here, and it results in a turnover on that Richardson drive. Again, we get a double ball screen. Paul George switches the first one, then forces Doncic away, ends up drawing the offensive foul here on the Doncic push-off. Another example of the switch to blitz is this ball screen here by Porzingis. Doncic gets Zubac switched. Paul George blitzes late on the drive, forces Doncic to give it up. And then again, we get full rotations by the Clippers on these drives. Ends up with a drive, baseline drift turnover here. So that's 2 times they've switched to trap, switched to blitz, ended up in 2 turnovers. 21 action here gets Morris switched onto Doncic. Then they go hunt Zubac and get Zubac switched onto Doncic. So they bring the 2 weaker defenders in the Clippers defense. Too much space for Doncic, ends up hitting the easy pound 3. Another example of Morris on Doncic here. He drives by him easily, does a great job cutting off the angle. Euro steps versus Kawhi, and now he reads the 2 wing defenders versus Beverly. This is an absolutely awesome play here as we rewind it. Watch him look off Beverly to the wing and hit the corner for an open corner 3. Such a savvy and clever play. Now, for some reason, Morris picks up Doncic full court here after they just hunted him in switches. So they put him and Zubac in ball screen again. And guess what? Doncic ends up hitting this little sidestep 3 to go into the half, putting the Mavericks up 5, ending up with 21, 4, and 6. Starting off the second half, the Clippers had the same theme where they switched this double fist ball screen. Now, since Doncic has Kawhi in him, he's going to bring KP back and set another screen, get Zubac switched on him. The Clippers are going to combat this with a switch to blitz with Kawhi trapping now. Doncic reads Paul George gambling to Porzingis. He skips it to the corner. They're able to attack Morris and hit a pretty tough pull-up. Now in transitions is where it gets a little chaotic. We can see this little drag screen from KP. Doncic turns the corner against Zubac, who's not in a good position, ends up drawing a foul here and going to the free throw line. Another example of a drag screen, we get Kawhi recognizing it and jumping out on Doncic. Doncic just going to bring Kleber back up and set another ball screen with Zubac. Zubac is going to switch onto Doncic. Doncic, I love how he shows this little hezzy here, avoids Kawhi on the help, ends up hitting a tough step back pull-up on Zubac. The next possession, guess what? Finds Zubac. Zubac dropped the switch. Doncic just throws the ball out, calmly goes back and hits a step back 3. This is pretty tough. Ends up looking off, not showing the shot. hitting the deep three. Ty Lue called a timeout. After the timeout, we can see it was clear. Instead of going to drop or go drop the switch or switch to blitz, they just go straight trap. So they have Zubac and Beverly trap Doncic here. Kind of catches the Mavericks off guard. The short roll isn't really there. Paul George, good rotation. Ends up being a scramble and leads to a turnover. The next play, we see a good adjustment here on the short roll by Finney-Smith, where he stays in the pocket and doesn't roll too deep, and now he has options where he can play 4-on-3. The Clippers do a good job rotating and recovering, but those rotations led to an offensive rebound made three. When the Clippers went small in the third quarter, it didn't matter. Doncic noticed that Morris is standing straight up here. He fires an overhead pass. Kleba attacks a closeout. Nothing comes of it, but a great read by Doncic nonetheless. We can see here they hunt Morris in small ball, and Doncic attacks him here, but instead of looking for the foul, I'd love to see him get like an escape pull-up in his repertoire for next season. Another example of them attacking the switch is this little drag screen, hunting Reggie Jackson now. So Doncic gets Jackson on him, clears out the ball side, goes into a post-up. They trap it real quick, a little scramble play here, doesn't allow the Clippers to recover, nobody contests at the rim, allows for a layup. Another example of them hunting Reggie Jackson here. This time we're going to get a switch to a blitz. So a trap on Doncic. He hits Brunson. Brunson looks to attack. Nothing really comes of it. Ends up being a pretty sloppy possession for the Mavericks. The trap works. Ends up being a turnover. Here we get some off-ball action at the elbow for Doncic. Reggie Jackson again switches onto Doncic. Doncic then clears out and gets the screen away. The Clippers then bring a trap on Doncic, and he's looking for someone to flash, and the whole point of this trap is to get the ball out of his hands, and there's nobody better to get the ball to the hands to Dwight Powell for a contested mid-range pull-up. That's the win for the Clippers. Doncic notices this and says, you know what, screw this, I'm just going to go early, attacks Reggie Jackson one-on-one, hits the easy step-back three. I love that adjustment from Doncic. The next possession, Rondo picks up Doncic a little bit higher. Doncic drives in the lane just a little bit out of control, flips up a pretty bad shot. The last play of the quarter, they run this little pick-the-picker action for Doncic. Two players run out at Doncic. He fires it to Josh Richardson. He drives in small ball with no big at the rim, ends up making a layup at the end of the quarter. Continuing the theme of trapping Doncic instead of a switch or a switch to trap with Ibaka in the game, we can see they trap the ball screen here. Once Doncic picks this up and is not a threat, Ibaka does a good job of clearing out and kicking out and rotating back. That forces a pretty tough three, a win for the Clippers defense. The Clippers here do a good job of pre-switching, so when they try to hunt Ibaka in this spread ball screen, we can see Ibaka point and Rondo take Powell. So now Rondo and Batum can go in soft trap Luka. The spacing of the Mavericks is pretty bad here. When Luka gives it up, Batum does a good job denying him the ball back, and it ends up in a pretty tough contested two by Brunson. Now this is great play design from Rick Carlisle. Since the Clippers are going to deny Doncic, he uses him as a back screener, and then coming off a down screen after getting the ball to the post for Brunson, using Luka as the back screener in this great set. Here the Mavericks run their Spain ball screen, and we get a switch of Ibaka onto Luka. Luka does a great job hesitating here, keeping the ball off his body so nobody can swipe it, and then using his inside arm to kind of clear out Ibaka and draw the foul. The next possession, they run the exact same Spain ball screen. This time, three players go with Luka. It creates a lot of confusion and a lot of chaos. The problem is it was the wrong read. Brunson was the correct read here. It ends up being a turnover when Paul George does a good job helping. The Clippers started to give Luka the Steph Curry treatment, setting up their traps extremely high and even in the backcourt. This forced Luka to give it up and others to play. By the time he gets it back here, as Batum denies, Paul George switches out here. They're going to hunt Ibaka, but when they get Ibaka switched onto Luka, there ends up being 5 seconds left on the shot clock. Ibaka does a good job pressuring, ends up with a really tough step back three from Luka that he misses. With the Clippers denying Luka, you can see they use him almost as a decoy here, playing 4-on-4. Brunson does a great job rejecting, hezzy, and finishing the easy layup. And we can see the issues with denying Luka. If you're beat playing 4-on-4, there's little to no resistance at the rim. Again, the Clippers are going to trap Luka with Ibaka and Batum here. He finds KP on a great behind the back pass. Good rotation by Kawhi. When Ibaka switched out here, you can see the whole Clippers staff are yelling at Kawhi to go trap. Kawhi signals he's going to trap. Ends up in a pretty tough three from KP deep. In this example, when the Clippers kind of gamble early with Batum and Rondo picks up Doncic, he's able to pass the ball ahead, and now the Mavs can play 2-on-1 with no recovery in transition that leads to an easy open three. The Mavs go to their Horns twist action, which is just a ball screen followed by another ball screen. When the Clippers trap here, Doncic actually makes a pretty bad pass and a bad read. He has the short roller here, but ends up lobbing the ball over the top, which allows an athletic Paul George to recover and get the steal. One of the Mavericks' favorite sets is to run Luka off this Iverson screen and then have him come off a side ball screen. Batum does a really good job here denying and taking away any action for Doncic off the ball. This leads to a swing and a Paul George taking a charge, forcing the turnover. Attacking the Clippers' small ball lineup when they trap, Doncic and KP set a ball screen. Doncic makes a better read this time. Instead of floating the pass, has an overhead bullet pass that leads to a Porzingis dunk. Here, Doncic tries to get Porzingis posting up against the small ball lineup of the Clippers. Ends up not getting any look out of it, so by the time Doncic gets the ball back, there's 6 seconds on the shot clock, which means he's got to attack pretty quickly against Paul George with no switch hunting. He attacks, almost draws the foul, probably gets that call in the regular season, but ends up missing the tough floater. Again, Rondo here picking up Luka a little bit higher. When they go to their off-ball action in Horns, they end up denying Luka. This forces a pretty tough possession, and Rondo gets the steal. With a tie game at 100 with 3 minutes left, this is essentially the possession that helps seal the game for the Mavericks. They go back to their Spain ball screen with no off-ball action, with multiple actions that really is tough on the defense to guard. In this example, we're going to see as the ball screen's happening, Rondo is communicating with Batum, telling him to take the roller. Batum doesn't recognize this and ends up taking Doncic, so the switching is blown and Paul George has to tag the low man. Doncic recognizes this, fires a skip pass for the easy three-point shot. After Porzingis free throws and some poor possessions by the Clippers offensively, we're going to see them trap Luka at the end of the game here. Now, the problem here is nobody rotates earlier to take Hardaway Jr. That allows him a runway and an easy layup. Another example here, as they trap Luka, the trap comes from Paul George ball side, so Luka can see the trap. Finney-Smith does a great job of reading it, flashing to the middle, finding Porzingis for the game-clinching dunk. A look at that flash here on this replay. Great flash, great read by Doncic, and the dunk seals the game. Doncic overall ended up controlling this entire game with his ball screen, ISO, and simple passing reads. 31 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists for a triple-double. Ended up clinching game 1 against the Mavericks. I think the Clippers go to more switching and then blitzing and trying to get the ball out of Luka's hands earlier and attacking him defensively, and they can have success. Thank you so much for watching this breakdown on Luka Doncic in game 1. I look forward to doing more of these. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to like and subscribe.